So the good news is we already have a quorum. So we can go whenever we're ready.
If folks don't mind, I think we've got just about a minute to go, but let's go ahead and get rolling. So I will call to order this January 3rd, 2024 meeting of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And very quickly, we'll do a roll call of members. Is Ed Kunkel with us today? Representing the city of Lacey. Ed's moving on, so he might not be with us today. Gary Edwards, Commissioner Gary Edwards.
Oops.
The Port of Olympia role is empty right now. Lisa partially representing the city of Olympia. Joan Cathy, city of Tumwater. Jeff, you told me we have a quorum.
We do.
We do, okay, good. Joseph Richardson from the city of Yelm. Elaine Clam from the city of Tenino.
Yes,
Good morning, Elaine.
thank you.
And Kirsten Presley from the town of Bucota.
Good morning, I am present.
Good morning. Richard Moon, I saw Richard, District 2. Yep. Greg Schoenbachler, our ag rep. And Chad Sutter.
Good morning, I'm here.
Hi, good morning, Chad. Aaron Robertson from Industry.
Good morning.
Good morning, nice to see you, Aaron. David Nightingale is here in the room with us. Kelsey Dunn from the Department of Ecology.
So I am New Kelsey.
Yeah, New Kelsey, and welcome.
You can call me Blelsey.
You said it was Blake, right?
Blake Nelson. That's
Blake.
Right. And I am permanent. Kelsey was acting in the position, so we actually switched roles. So.
Okay. Well, welcome.
That's how much I wanted to be here.
And we're glad to have you. So Jeff, if you could introduce staff, and then we'll get to guests.
Certainly. In the room with you, you have four of those. First off is our Senior Program Manager, Amanda Romero.
Morning.
There. We have our Solid Waste Planner, Laura Glover.
Hello.
In that room. We have Hope Springer.
Hi.
When our Education and Outreach is there, as well as Jessica Kelly, who's a Senior Office Assistant, is in the room with you there as well. I see Karen Weiss is on the call. There she is. Rob Pudner, also Education and Outreach.
Good morning.
I'm gonna get my full list again. See if I miss. Oh, Danielle Winsky is there. She
Good
is.
morning.
See if I'm missing. Oh, Rebecca Harvey from the board's office. She should be presenting today as well. I think that is it for staff. Did I miss any staff? Apparently not. Okay. Now guests, we have Tracy Bills from HDR.
Morning.
Let's see, David Payne.
Good morning.
All the names just bounced around on me here. Okay, let's see. Gary Franks from Olympia. And not related, but Jason Franks from Republic. Let's see, we have Sean Gilbertson.
Hello.
He's acting for Port of Olympia.
Steve Gilmore, also Republic. And then Tom Rupert from Waste Connections. Travis Dutton from Wassac, I'll be presenting here this morning as well. Trevor Palmer.
Hi, good morning.
And I think, did I miss anybody? I think I caught everybody there.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at today's agenda? If so, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today.
I so move.
Thank you, Elaine. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. We have an agenda. And have you had a chance to take a look at our minutes from our November meeting? If so, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November of 2023.
I so move.
Thank you, Elaine. And looking for a second?
I second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. And we have approved the minutes from November 1 of 2023. I don't think we have any public comments. Is there anyone on the Zoom that had some public comment today? Hearing none, we will move on to old business, which I also don't believe we have any old business. So we'll move right into today's new business, starting with Travis, to talk about what we can expect from the 2024 legislative session.
Great. Well, good morning. Thank you again. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. My name is Travis Dutton. I'm a policy analyst with the Washington State Association of Counties. And in one of my primary roles, I represent the affiliate group, the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers. So working on behalf of counties, primarily in solid waste, recycling, waste reduction, but I also spend time in some other natural resource areas, clean energy. I was reading about wolf habitat and beaver habitat this morning, so quite a wide spectrum of fun stuff. But today I'm here just to focus on solid waste, and if you guys need beaver or wolf habitat information at another point, we can talk about it. But, I'm going to pull up a slideshow and go through the obligatory "can everybody see my slides" question here. So let me just pull that up and make sure that I can share my screen. And of course, everything is now working.
I was catching up on wolves this morning too. We should talk.
Wolves and beavers. It's very interesting. No dinosaurs this year, but there are wolves and beavers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yes, happy to talk. All right, can I get a thumbs up? Are you seeing the title slide without notes?
Yes.
All right, excellent. This presentation will be slightly different than what was sent out earlier. I made that before the holiday break, and there's been some updates. So I have shared this presentation, and hopefully, if there's information on here that you want, you don't have to frantically take notes or go back to the recording. It should be sent out, I assume so, with updated bill information. So I'm going to be going over just a high level look at just a recap of last year very quickly. Take a look at what we're expecting at a very high level, and we can dig into some things very specifically. And then at the end, I also see there's a lot of folks on this call that might have additional information. So if there's conversation or questions, there's quite a few folks in the room that can help fill in some gaps. So I just want to, so for this year, 2024, the legislative priorities for the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers fall in two primary areas. One is extended producer responsibility. We want to see programs that place the responsibility of recycling and incentivizing more thoughtful design into products and take some of the fiscal or financial responsibility away from counties and residents. But we want to see it done in a way that truly captures all of the costs of the program and truly leads to improved recycling and improved service for residents across the state. And then the second primary area is modernizing solid waste program funding. As I'm sure a lot of you know, a lot of our county solid waste programs are funded primarily through tip fees and local solid waste financial assistance. Those two funding sources are primarily based upon either putting something in a landfill or purchasing fossil fuels or hazardous substances, both of which are targets of the state to reduce. So we depend heavily on funding that is likely to see decreases over the coming years as the state moves towards its environmental goals. So we would like to see funding that's more diversified, more consistent, more stable, and even opportunities to help a lot of counties catch up on deferred maintenance and catch up and get prepared for a lot of the legislation that is coming that we'll talk about. You may remember, I don't know how many folks remember these really exciting presentations and PowerPoints from last year, but there was a third goal that we had last year, which was to support returning funding to the Public Works Assistance account, which, because it was a very popular item, happened. So now there are low interest loans available to counties, including solid waste programs, to make capital investments and infrastructure investments. So that was successful last year. I'd like to say it was our success alone, but a lot of people wanted to see that money returned, especially in our program. That funding comes from a collection, tax on the collection of garbage. And we really want to see that funding go or be available to solid waste programs. So just 2023 recap. I really liked these skulls from last year. I thought they were pretty clever and I enjoyed them. So I kept them. So just wanted to go through what did and did not survive last year. The RAP Act, or an Extended Producer Responsibility Program, that would have established EPR for plastic and paper product packaging. It would have established post-consumer recycled content requirements to support markets. And it would have also included a bottle deposit program. That bill ended up dying in the House and did not make it to the end. A battery EPR program was successfully passed, including medium or small format batteries, medium format batteries to come, and then a study from the Department of Ecology on EV batteries. Plastic pollution bill, looking at reducing plastic water bottle waste by requiring the installation of water fountains in schools and other public buildings of a certain size, as well as some of the plastic materials that are used for docks or flotation in marine infrastructure. A right to repair bill for cell phones, tablets, and other devices did not make it, largely due to privacy concerns and I'm going to lose the word, but basically proprietary information from the tech companies. There's a compostable packaging bill that passed that required an advisory committee to develop recommendations on how to manage compostable packaging in the state. Counties have 2 positions with 1 alternate on that committee. So I think Kittitas and Pierce County are our primary representatives representing county solid waste programs, and Yakima County as well, representing and coming up with recommendations for how to manage compostable products in the state. EPR programs for all light bulbs and all appliances were not successful last year. There was a bill that was successful for the study to identify how to manufacture turbine blades with recycled content and how to recycle wind turbine blades, as well as a rates and input study that Ecology was to look at what current recycling rates, what target rates should be set, and gathering public input. So that report was just recently published, actually, and I can share the link here in a little bit when I'm not sharing my screen, but gathered a lot of public input on the state of recycling and the programs that people engage with now and what they would like to see. And then additionally, there was a funding study that we were working on in the Department of Ecology that also wrapped up this last year that was supposed to take a look at the amount of impact or financial impact that certain pieces of legislation would have on local county solid waste programs. And we're working now to kind of dig further to get some more detail out of that. So I'm going to stop here just for any questions. Are there any questions about any of the 2023 before I move on to the next slide?
Hey, Travis, do you expect the sculled bills to not come back this year, or do you think we're going to see them again this year?
Well, that is an excellent segue to my next slide, which there's not skulls and it's very boring. It's a table. And again, this is not something you need to frantically take notes on, but these are the bills that I am currently aware of, as you can see, as of this morning, that have been pre-filed. or that we have seen drafts of. So in short, yes, all of the skull bills, I gotta not get in the habit of calling them that, but all of the skull bills have already come back in some form or another, modified a little bit. So yes.
Could you give a little more detail on the wind turbine blade? What's in that bill, just roughly?
It is just a study on how to recycle wind turbine blades that are being removed in the state, and the potential for post-consumer recycled content, making wind turbine blades out of recycled materials, you know, the fiberglass, plastic, et cetera. So I'm not technically savvy on what goes into a wind turbine blade, but that it's just a study bill with the hopes of proposing a program in the future.
Thank you.
And if I could take just a moment to note that we have been joined in the room by Commissioner Edwards.
Welcome.
That was 5 minutes ago, Chair.
I was waiting for a break.
Well, feel free to interrupt me if more folks come in and we need to welcome them. So feel
Thanks,
free to
Travis.
throw it up. So,
I don't see any hands on the screen, so I think you're good to move forward.
all right. So there's already quite a few solid waste bills. These are all of the ones that we're expecting. A couple of these are a little bit of a, not a surprise, but for most of these, we've been involved, and I say we, either members of WACSWM or staff at WASAC, or the Washington State Association of Counties, have been part of conversations ongoing. So we've had the opportunity to look at some drafts, and we will be working up bill summaries and have more information, but I'm going to just touch on them very quickly, and then you'll have the reference for the House bill numbers if you want to look further. And we'll also be having, I'm assuming Jeff or somebody from Thurston County as well will be participating in weekly legislative updates that myself and my boss, Paul Jewell, will be providing, where we'll dig further into details on bills, get feedback and input, et cetera. So I'm going to just go through these as quickly as I can, and then come back to any that sound interesting to folks. So last year's WRAP Act, the EPR program for plastic and paper and plastic packaging, has come back. I don't know that it's formally called REWRAP. That was a working title, but the REWRAP Act, again, from Representative Liz Berry, establishes an EPR program for product packaging, pretty expansive list of product packaging. Differences this year, it includes EPR, it includes post-consumer recycled content, but it does not include the bottle deposit program that it had last year. One other significant difference is just the materials that are covered. I think in order to help out and get some more support, they've eliminated materials related to over-the-counter medication and things, a lot of the items that you find in a pharmacy that are also overseen by USDA or other agencies that require certain types of packaging for safety and health purposes. In addition to that, somewhat parallel to that, or as an alternative to that, Representative Jake Fye has filed for a recycling rates bill. And this is, I would say, sort of a proposed stepping stone to the REWRAP Act, where it would require a needs assessment and a characterization of what is and is not being captured for recycling in the state. It would require producers to begin registering with the Department of Ecology for folks that sell products into the state that have packaging. And it would also require post-consumer recycled content, just like the RAP Act. And it also has truth in labeling, which would eliminate the sale of materials into the state if it has any markings or any advertising that indicates it's recyclable when it is in fact not. So truth in labeling requirements. It does not propose EPR. This is, like I said, sort of a stepping stone. It is the goal is to take all the studies that have been done, look at what is a gap analysis, and take a look at what type of a program would be best for Washington. There is a dilapidated RV disposal from Senator Mazzal, and it establishes a voluntary grant program for people who want to get rid of RVs that they no longer intend to use. So this would be for counties to receive grant funding, a voluntary program to receive grant funding to collect, process, disassemble RVs for disposal and recycling. And it would also reimburse folks that own RVs that would like to get rid of them. This would be funded through two programs, one through the Department of Transportation that establishes waste dump sites for RVs at rest stops. And then there's also a $6 registration fee for RVs that goes into an account that is currently being used to reimburse tow companies who tow abandoned RVs. This program doesn't have anything right now related to abandoned RVs. It does require proof of ownership, and it is focused on folks who want to get rid of. So the idea is it would incentivize the appropriate, but I need to do some work with some of our county staff to see, or our county county managers to see how big of a problem voluntary versus abandoned RVs will cause. There is a bill related to the litter tax from Senator Fortunato. And it really doesn't impact it doesn't really have much of an impact. What it does is it eliminates the Department of Revenue from, or the Department of Commerce from using litter tax funds to enforce the litter tax program. So hopefully that would just free up a little bit more money for litter cleanup for WashDOT and other programs. One that I had not heard of until it was filed is this one, the Conservation in Schools from Representative Bergquist. This formally establishes a Washington Green Schools program and establishes funding for schools in Washington that have and want to expand or establish conservation programs. So waste reduction, school energy use, water use, as well as some forestry programs that schools can engage with the Department of Natural Resources to develop schoolyard forestry or greening or other habitat restoration programs. So this would be funding that goes to schools. I think it said it was a $15,000 per project per year grant that could go to schools, as well as funding for stipends to pay for conservation program advisors. So really, you know, the in-school champions. I'm sure if anybody there has worked in waste reduction or any other school program, having a reliable champion is a really big part of that, and being able to incentivize that a little bit more to make sure the program survives is important. So those are the bills that have been pre-filed.
Hey, Travis?
Yeah, go ahead.
We do have a couple of questions. I think there's one remotely. I can't see who it is, but
Go for it, yeah.
does somebody have a question?
Commissioner Mejia had her hand raised. Yeah.
Oh, it's Commissioner Mejia?
Mhm.
I didn't even know she was with us, but welcome.
She's checking up on me, make sure.
Commissioner Edwards had a question too, so, yeah. she's-
Well, I'll take a pause here. The last bills are going to be very quick, just because they haven't been filed yet, but I can share some details, but I can pause here for questions.
So Commissioner Edwards, you had a question?
I have a question about the dilapidated RVs. You mentioned that currently the $6 fee goes towards the tow companies to dispose of these in one fashion or another. Is that going to continue as an expenditure out of that $6 fee, or is there another $6 fee? What's going on there?
From my understanding, Commissioner and Commissioner Edwards, did I get that correct? Just want to make
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Okay. From my understanding, we did a survey of our county solid waste programs this past fall at the request of Senator Mazzal to see how folks were or were not using and get some feedback on the existing program. So my understanding, based on that input, is that that program will continue, but the entirety of the funding is not being used because it is difficult for the tow companies or the counties to coordinate and make it work. So that tow companies are opting out of participating in that program, and the funding is not available for any other type of transportation. So my understanding is that they're diverting some of that funding to alternative incentives to get RVs to where they need to be. So my understanding is that that program will continue. There is no indication. It is just an appropriation from the existing funds. So there is no proposal to create a new funding source for this. That being said, that is where it is right now, and a lot can happen in the next few months, as you are probably more aware than I am. But as of right now, that program should continue with a little bit of support from the unused funds in that program.
I guess the reason I asked that question, I've been contacted by those record operators that feel they have never been adequately reimbursed is why the program isn't working. It's just too expensive. And I'd like to, if that is true, I've only a very small sampling, but if that's a true statement, maybe some enhanced amount of funding towards solving that problem, because it becomes a big problem for counties, I know, and probably cities as well.
Yeah, we'll be bringing this back out to counties at one of our upcoming meetings. I'm actually reaching out to some of the counties now to get their feedback on this. So I'll make a note of that. Like I said, our survey had just included our county solid waste programs, and legislative staff had been doing the rest of the study, so I can inquire. But we'll definitely be taking a look at whether or not this is going to be of benefit or really just an alternative program that doesn't really help us clean up the RV issue that we have going on. So thank you for comment.
Gary, some of the challenges with the RV disposal too, and maybe Department of Ecology can speak to this, is that they've started to also request abatement certifications on the RVs for the asbestos breaks. And so that's for dismantlers like myself who can process these pretty efficiently for the wreckers. It's become quite a challenge, and it's a gray area that we haven't really wanted to get into because abatement surveys take time and become costly and create some other challenges in the recycling system as well. So I know that, you know, and it has been fumbled a bit, this program, in terms of how the funds get dispersed, as well as the pot that they have in order to, it is quite a bit of a problem. And it's something that we're looking to work at on the legislative level to help mend and kind of correct this legislative season.
Thanks, Chad. That fits right in there, that what I'm talking about.
That's great. And Chad or Jeff, I may follow up with you on that. That's helpful information. So thank you. Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions before Travis shares what bills he's still expecting to see? Oh, yeah,
And you're in
Like-
the near the room, I don't know if you see like this.
yeah, yeah, that's
Commissioner
good.
Edwards, I'm Blake Nelson, the new solid waste section manager for the Southwest region.
Oh, great.
And I just actually reviewed this bill. And I was sure to put in there, like, if it passes, like, we have to do rulemaking because of basically what was just brought up, like, because we have the option to do rulemaking or not. And yeah, those issues that were just brought up are absolutely true. And I'd say a concern is to kind of like, I'm not, this isn't my expertise, I'm not sure exactly how the program's running, but sort of passing those issues to the county from the state, you know, if we don't like really clarify like how to execute the program and do the reimbursements and what's eligible and make really clear rule around it. So just wanted to say those concerns are real and we are aware of them.
Thank you.
The other concern that I have, just from my experience in Clark County, was that the people that are, it's abandoned RVs that don't necessarily have owners that were a big part of our problem. So my question is, I'm just curious how much of an issue, how incentivized this will be, you know, is this program enough to incentivize somebody to not drive the RV out into the Columbia River Gorge where I live and dump it in the woods, or, you know, Thurston County in the woods, or the side of the road, right? So just we'll spend some more time with Senator Mazzol and the staff and some counties to get some of that feedback. So but this is all great conversation.
And maybe because we're on that topic yet, and the one other thing that we've found over the years is it's generally not just an RV. It's generally an RV full of all kinds of whatever, and a lot of that is toxicity material. So it's a pretty serious problem that I don't think has been given adequate attention. That's just my own personal spin on it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Maybe this is the year.
I'm going to touch on these last five. As I mentioned, the REWRAP Act eliminated the bottle deposit, so that is going to be coming up as a separate bill this year. I don't know who the sponsor is off the top of my head, but it has not been pre-filed, but that would establish a 10-cent deposit, and I'm looking forward to, I need to take a look at some of the language in greater detail to determine whether or not it requires a RAP Act to pass or not, but that will be a separate bill. for a bottle deposit program in Washington State. The organics round 2, as folks are calling it, 2 of the primary areas that we're looking at is it does provide funding in the form of grants to counties from the Climate Commitment Fund to implement the requirements that came about in the previous 2 years ago, the Organics Management Act that passed that required set dates for the requirements of composting or food waste or organics collection in areas that met certain population or density requirements for both residents and commercial. So this will help provide funding for counties or organizations that are supporting that work. One of the areas that we're most concerned about is it does require any county that has a program like this or is required to implement an organics program. It sets minimum purchasing requirements for counties to buy compost to use in projects. And if a county or local municipality cannot use the compost, they're required to contribute an equal amount of funding to a fund that will support or subsidize the application of compost and agricultural land. That's a big issue that we have. It really puts the creation of a market on counties. And this is already a program that's going to cost a lot of money across the state to implement. And to create an artificial market is somewhat problematic for counties, especially when there's a lot of other things that we need to be doing as well. So we're going to be working on that. We just submitted a comment letter to Representative Dolio, who I didn't put that on here, but Representative Dolio is sponsoring that bill and was receptive to a lot of our feedback. So hopefully we'll see some improvements there. But the funding, including grant funding that hopefully our request is that it's non-competitive, at least for counties or organizations that need or have to implement requirements. And currently it does not require a match. So funding that's easy to access, versatile, and sufficient for counties is a big win. And hopefully unless the Climate Commitment Fund is no longer here in November, then we'll have to look someplace else. But in the meantime, it's a good opportunity, hopefully, to get some funding as long as we keep that other stuff out. Right to repair is coming back. The rumor that I have heard is for some reason Apple is now in support, and Apple was a big piece of the opposition. So hopefully that's got some teeth this year, and it will be easier for people to get devices fixed. Last year, there was a bill around a proposed bill for EPR for all appliances. This year, the bill is focused solely on appliances that have hydrofluorocarbons or HFCs or very dense greenhouse gases. And it'll establish sort of a bounty program similar to car batteries, where people will be able to bring their materials or their appliances or have them collected. Counties or solid waste organizations will process the gas and collect it appropriately and still be able to scrap it. But it's reduced a little bit in scope. And then lastly, there is an illegal dumping bill that we just got draft language for, and I'm not completely aware of the details, but I can follow up with Jeff or somebody there to share details. Those are the bills that I'm aware of. I don't know if I've missed anything, if anybody that's there wants to throw something out, or if there was a grave inaccuracy that anybody saw, please chime in. But other than that, those are my bills. So stop for questions.
Yes, Richard.
Just, if you could just comment briefly how serious a problem is illegal dumping in the state? I just don't know if that's a big problem or a very small problem.
I don't have I'd have to get back to you on a definitive statistical answer. I think that's a good question, but I do know that it was something that when I've worked both in Pierce County Solid Waste and Clark County Solid Waste, it was a very large issue. And even driving around here in the woods, just on the back roads or driving up the gorge, it's a very big and very visible issue. But I don't have really any quantitative data off the top of my head. So I don't know if anybody else, Jeff, if you can speak, or Jeff, or if anybody can speak to Thurston County or otherwise. But while I know it's a big issue, I don't have quantitative data.
I've got to jump in there. It is a big issue to the county and to this community in general, because there's nothing more disheartening than seeing a pile of rubbish or whatever. A lot of times there's construction debris and anyway, I think they ought to make it a capital crime myself. That's how serious I think it is. So I know it's a big problem for cleanup, getting it done right, resources to get it done right. And the penalties are not very easy to enforce. So it needs some tune-up.
Thanks for that, and we just got a comment too in chat from Thurston with the town of Bucota. She says it really is a problem there, and property owners are getting junk dumped on their properties, and it's a challenge there too.
Well, and I think one thing that Commissioner Edwards, one thing that might help, and I think maybe Tom might be able to shed some light on this as well, is in Lewis County, they do a very, very good job about their code enforcement. They have code enforcement officers out working to make sure that they're curbing these types of things. And I think that that's something in Thurston County that I don't believe we have in place, or we have the resources or the fundings to be able to facilitate. And I think if that was something that the county maybe looked at, it might be something that could help curb a lot of the illegal dumping. I mean, just go down and take a look off of what is that, Pacific Ave, where what do they call that place? I can't even think of it. You'll probably know it, Renee. What's the name of it?
The new county building, I
Oh,
don't know.
no, the jungle, excuse
Oh,
me.
the jungle, yeah,
Yeah, so you go down there, and that tells you how serious of a problem
yeah.
it is in this county.
The county has oftentimes put out dumpsters even to try and address the issue where they have these gatherings. And I think the whole homeless thing isn't handled properly myself, but I have my own ideas on that. But those folks will not take advantage of those dumpsters either. They just continue to be irresponsible and throw stuff out. If they had some serious penalties, which I think it's a serious crime, I believe that would help as much as anything. And I don't know if we could cut off fingers or sell kidneys or whatever it takes, because it's not seriously taken, that's for sure.
Steve.
Yeah, so it definitely is a problem. I don't have any data, and Gary, that's a very good idea, actually. No, I'm joking. Between Clickitat County, which is a county of 22,000 people, that's where Roosevelt landfill is located. Republic contributes about $100,000 a year of services and disposal for illegal dump sites in that county. So if you think about a county of 22,000 people, and legitimately, we are not even scratching the surface of the problem. So it is a significant issue, and it really needs to be dealt with. And I think, Chad, you're spot on, which is code enforcement. The county in Clickitat has been unwilling to really do code enforcement, which has created and magnified the issue. So that's part of the problem.
Any further comment on illegal dumping? Great conversation. It is a big problem. It is a really big problem.
And
Travis.
I'll run the finger and dismemberment idea past that LSC, but I didn't write that down just in case. So I'm not going to cover all this. My presentation's already gone a little bit long, but I just want to highlight that there was a lot of work done from all of our county solid waste managers since the last time we spoke, including Amanda and Jeff coming all the way to Spokane to sit through 2 days of meetings with our solid waste folks, really digging into these issues, doing a lot of planning, meeting with representatives and legislators to talk about what's important to us, and that work will continue. Like I said, we'll be meeting every Monday morning, and county solid waste managers and county staff can sit in and participate in discussions around legislation, and that we'll also be planning our Wax Swim Hill Day, where we gather and say march on the Capitol, but that's not probably the terminology I meant to use. We will walk politely over to the Capitol and have meetings all day with legislators to talk about some of our primary issues. But I just want to highlight the amount of work and time that Jeff and Amanda have put into just engaging in this work as well, and that they will continue to likely do so. And with that, that is all that I have. I see Steve's hand go up, but I will turn things back over to our Slack.
Thanks, Travis. And before you leave us, Steve, do you still have a question or a comment for Travis?
No, I was just going to say that I emailed out to the group a couple documents from WRRA regarding phase bill. The industry has some serious reservations and concerns about the RAP Act for various reasons. The stakeholder process has been non-existent from an industry perspective. So I just wanted to get that perspective out there and let you folks have some additional information on the topic.
Thanks, Steve. And Chad, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the last comment there from Travis. I don't think they call it a march on the hill. I think it's walk the hill or something to that effect every year. But it's an opportunity for legislators here directly from the businesses and constituents here in this community. And if you have time to express your concerns or listen to other businesses or constituents in the community on these issues, I highly recommend it. It's incredibly impactful to the way that they create policy and how they manage it. And they really, it's an opportunity. It's just such a wonderful opportunity because they really take to heart that particular time on the Hill to listen to people's concerns, because those people are their constituents and their voices matter. So
That is absolutely true. Thanks for saying that, Chad. Any other thoughts before we let Travis carry on with his day? Okay, I don't see any. David Payne is here to share with us some information about waste to energy and what's going on in Spokane. David.
Hey, good morning. Let me see if I can share my screen here. All right.
We can see it.
Okay, good. I'm just trying to get it to. Hold on a second. Trying to get it to where it fits right. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning. My name's David Payne. I'm the plant manager here at the city of Spokane. And I appreciate you asking us to participate in this meeting and give you a little background about waste to energy. This facility's been here since around 91, 92. I've been with it since 2016. I'm gonna move a bar here. There we go. So the waste energy facility is part of the city's and the county's regional comprehensive solid waste system. It encourages recycling and waste reduction along with the recovery of energy. The waste energy facility came online in 1991 as part of the overall solution to handle the community's solid waste, replacing non-compliant leaking landfills. The original cost, if I understand, back in 1992 was somewhere between around 150 to $200 million to build. This facility burns municipal solid waste to recover energy in the form of electricity. We handle approximately 800 tons a day at plus or minus, 50 tons, or roughly 246,000 tons a year. And we generate 22 megawatts of electricity each hour, enough to power 13,000 homes. We sell everything that we don't use to the Vista utilities, and our revenues are roughly $5 million in power sales annually. That fluctuates, and I will tell you that in the last couple of years, that number is starting to decline, primarily because of the cost of goods and rising costs of labor as well. This facility employs 76 people. That includes our waste to energy staff, the maintenance staff. We have an outside operations staff that handles and mans our recycling facility and manages our hazardous waste facility. And then we have our admin staff, and we have 6 commercial scales and 2 landfills that we manage as well. How did waste energy come about? In the 1970s, the Federal Clean Air Act spurred the demand for air pollution control equipment, specifically from a company called Wheelbarrow Fry. Wheelbarrow Fry acquired a company called Rust Engineering as a leading designer and builder of pulp and paper plants. The move proved critical in the building and foundation of Wheelabrator and the waste energy in the United States as it exists. Wheelabrator built the first waste energy facility in the United States in Saugus, Massachusetts in 1995. Rust Engineering was critical because it held a significant number of licenses that are associated with waste energy boiler operations. The acquisition ultimately pushed Wheelabrator to the forefront, making it the leading pioneer in waste energy industry in the U.S. as we know it today. This is kind of a history of Wheelabrator's waste energy or Wheelabrator's history, so you can kind of see how things went with them and where they ended up. Again, they started out in 1995, and as you go through, you can see the different mergers and acquisitions. Leading up to the 1992, Wheelabrator Spokane becoming the only operating municipality-owned waste energy facility in Washington State, with Wheelabrator as the operator and the city as the owner. Waste Management acquired Wheelabrator. Waste Management had stocks in Wheelabrator, but they acquired the remaining shares of Wheelabrator in 1998, and Wheelabrator became part of the Waste Management machine. In 2014, they divested themselves of the Wheelabrator waste energy facilities, and they were acquired by a company called Energy Capital Partners. It was at the same time that the plant manager for almost 20 years here at the city of Spokane, working for Wheelabrator, led the transition for the city to take over total control operationally of the facility and divest itself from the Wheelabrator machine. So the city has operated the plant since November of 2014 and continues to and will continue to in the future. Wheelabrator is now the second largest, outpaced by Covanta as the number one owner and operator of waste energy facilities in the United States. And they were acquired by Wind Waste in 2021. There are roughly 75 waste energy facilities operating in the U.S. at this time. And this is just a comparison to roughly 500 in Europe. And if you look at the size of Europe and the size of the United States, we are far behind the power curve for what the other countries do. And again, this is just a repeat of what I said. In 2014, the former Wheelabrator Technologies plant manager, Chuck Conklin, facilitated the transition. The success of this transition was and is still being monitored throughout the waste energy industry. The reason being is this has been tried numerous times over the years with municipalities acquiring or taking over control of their facilities, and there's more of a failure rate than a success rate. In 2018, the city of Tampa approached the city of Spokane to gain insight on the transition of their city-owned and Wheelabrator operated facility. They ultimately followed the same path as the city of Spokane, with Chuck Conklin leading the transition team. Chuck left the city of Spokane to go to Tampa, Florida as an independent contractor, and eventually they hired him as a solid waste director down there. And he facilitated the transition of their facility. Again, you look at the size of Europe and you look at the United States, one of the main reasons why waste energy facilities are more prevalent in Europe is land. There's very little space for landfills, whereas in the United States, we have a ton of space, except on the East Coast. And this is where you'll see that on the East Coast, all of these circles are waste energy facilities. And you can see the majority of them are between Maine and Florida. The state of Minnesota has a number there that are owned and operated by the state. And then there's a sparse number of facilities beyond the Midwest. We're the only one in Washington. Covanta owns or operates the only one in Oregon, and then there's two in California, and one of them is kind of like what they call a peaking plant. They only come online when they need to dispose of some waste. There is one in Hawaii. It's a very large one. I think it's close to, it's one of the probably 4 largest in the United States. One of the major obstacles, one of the 2 major obstacles that the city of Spokane faces is the ever increasing cost of goods and services. One example, and the most dramatic, was the increase we've seen in a chemical that we use as part of our process, hydrochloric acid. Pre-COVID costs were roughly $250,000 a year. This price rose sometimes month to month during COVID, and it has flattened out at roughly $800,000 a year with no sign of recovery or anything close to pre-COVID pricing. It is what it is. The other is staffing. Waste energy internal operations staff. The average tenure for internal operations staff, those are the people that actually operate the waste energy facility and maintain it. It's close to 20 years. When the city took over operational control at the end of the operating contract in 2014, only 4 employees chose to transfer and stay with Wheelabrator. Since that time, there has been turnover, but primarily in the entry levels. So the ability to keep staff is there. The ability to replace staff is extremely difficult. This is the current staffing structure for the waste energy facility. We have an education coordinator hidden behind the bar on the top of my screen as a solid waste director. And then I report to the solid waste director, the office manager and education coordinator report to the solid waste director. And then I manage these other entities here. The scale house personnel, the operations superintendent manages his staff, landfill and transfer staff, and maintenance staff. And then on the right, we have a safety coordinator, internal safety coordinator. We have our own environmental manager dedicated to the waste energy facility. We also have an environmental analyst, a plant engineer, and a maintenance planner. The city of Spokane is committed to maintaining high quality standards when operating the waste energy facility. Emissions are monitored and regulated by the U.S. Environmental and Protective Agency, Spokane Clean Air Agency, and the Washington State Department of Ecology and the Spokane Regional Health District. These regulatory agencies require continuous emissions monitoring, monthly reporting, and annual stack testing. Emissions from the waste energy are well within the limits defined by our operating permits with federal standards for new facilities. For most regulated emissions, the actual emissions from the waste energy are less than 10% of the emissions allowed by the permit. I know you have a copy of this presentation, but there's a link down there that you can go to see our past emissions, current emissions. And the Clean Air Agency has access to this on a minute by minute, day by day basis. So as I said before, 90% of the waste energy facilities are on the East Coast. There's only 4 on the West Coast. Roughly 10% are owned or operated by municipalities. The background for most waste energy facility staff are maritime school graduates, shipping industry, Coast Guard, Navy. I'm kind of the oddball. I came from the Army. The typical waste energy facility runs 24/7, 365 days a year, only coming offline for equipment casualties or planned maintenance events. This means shift work. Shifts come in a variety of offerings. The most prevalent schedule is the 4 days on, 4 days off, 4 nights on, 4 nights off shift. The last waste energy facility in the United States came online in Florida in 2015. Their Solid Waste Association Renewable Energy Facility number 2 at a cost of $672 million. It's a state-of-the-art waste energy facility. The project is the first of its kind in more than 20 years and the most advanced, efficient, cleanest, and greenest waste energy power plant in the world. The plant processes 3,000 tons a day of post-recycled municipal solid waste and generates 100 megawatts per hour, enough to power 44,000 homes. This is a picture of that facility. It sits on a 25-acre lot. It's huge. The heart of our facility and the operating on a day-to-day basis is the control room operator. Everything comes through the control room operator. Points of contact for contractors, vendors, maintenance workers, inside staff, outside staff. The shift supervisor is always in command of the day-to-day operations, but the communications come through the control room operator. And this is actually a picture of our control room. It's got a couple updates. That space that's vacant, we have another monitor there. This is a picture from the crane pulpit. Operators stack trash and feed the municipal solid waste into the boiler feed chutes. This is another picture of our pit, and on the left-hand side, you can see there's a garbage truck that had just backed up and dumped off a load of material. The crane's picking up material and stacking it for future use. This is the full length of our pit. Our pit will hold 8,000 tons of municipal solid waste. In the back end, that's where the crane operator has stacked the trash that's come in through the day. After he stacks it and he starts to feed it into the boiler, he reaches into that stacked pile, picks up a grapple load of material, drops it, picks it back up again a couple times to fluff it and loosen it up so that it burns more efficiently in the boilers. This is the residential side of our receiving area. This is where citizens can come in with their pickup trucks or cars, whatever they want, and they can drop off just about anything. We have, this is where the garbage area is. On the other side, from where this picture was taken, is our clean green recycling area. We take wood lengths up to 6 feet and under 3 inch in diameter, brush, trim, grass clippings, whatever. This is part of our tour route. The individual in the picture is one of our tour guides. She's getting ready to show a tour, or would be showing a tour, what the furnace looks like when it's online. And this is what she would see when you'd look in there. Citizens come in, they get a chance to look through that viewport, they walk through the tour route. And just for general purposes, this is me. I'm not a native Northwesterner. I was born in upstate New York, graduated high school in 1974, joined the military in 1974, had a number of jobs in the military. After the military, I worked in a production machine shop, served as a construction equipment sales and rental manager, service manager, until I hired on with Wheelabrator Technologies in 1998. I stayed with Wheelabrator for roughly 18 and a half years. And I came out here in 2016. I worked as a maintenance manager, an operations and maintenance manager, an interim plant manager. And I worked at one of the smallest facilities in the country, Claremont, New Hampshire, which is a 200-day facility where you could literally stand inside the boiler and stretch your arms out and almost touch the walls because it was 8 foot wide. To two of the largest in the United States, 3,000 ton a day 3,000 ton a day facilities with 3 boilers in Baltimore and Peekskill, New York, until I again came out here as a plant manager for the city of Spokane. And that's the end of my presentation. If there's any questions.
Do we have questions for David? Yes, Commissioner Edwards.
Do you burn the 800 tons?
Yes.
Producing the 22 megawatts. How much product is left unburned? I mean, do you do some separation? Like, how do you take in maybe 100 tons a day, but of that you have to landfill 200 tons, or what's that ratio?
So the process takes 100, reduces the volume by 90%. So we end up with about 10 to 15% of ash. There are some unburnables in there. There's metal in there. We have a metals recycling facility at the end that pulls large and small steel out. We are looking at putting in a non-ferrous recovery system that will pull out the aluminums, the coppers, the golds, and all the other stuff. So we landfill 10 10 to 15% of what we burn. And as of this past fall, we used to be classified as special incinerator waste, but that classification has changed to just solid waste. The history of the plant, the testing we do on the ash allowed us to make that change in designation. So where our ash used to go to a dedicated ash landfill, mass mono landfill. Now it goes to Oregon to a landfill to be used as cover, which, to be honest with you, is atypical of where ash goes in the East Coast or the other facilities. This is one of, and I want to get this right. This facility versus the other facilities in the United States is one of only a couple that are not designated as renewable energy.
How much fossil fuel do you burning all this stuff?
So we use natural gas to start the boilers up. So when a boiler, let's say a boiler comes up from a repair or maintenance, we're on natural gas for roughly 8 hours. It could be 12 hours, depending on how long the boiler's been offline. And then it's all self-combustion. So the trash keeps the trash burning. There's no supplemental fuel.
And that acid that the price went up so high on.
Yep.
800,000 or something. Is there another product that would suffice, maybe not as good, but something to, cut down your productivity, but maybe be way less cost?
Well, that's actually a very good question, because we are looking into that to see if there's something we can do to upgrade a system to minimize that cost. That was just an extreme. That's the extreme example. All of our chemicals went up. All of our chemicals went up. All of our parts prices went up. Some of them, that was the most dramatic for the chemicals on the parts side. We've had parts go up anywhere from 5 to 50%.
Good presentation, David. I'm your graduated the same class as you did from high school, so looking at the end of our careers here, I think. But at any rate, I just wanted to give you an update on your retired waste energy facilities. There was one in Skagit County, a small not ComSat, anyway. And then there was another refuse-derived fuel facility in Tacoma, city of Tacoma run. So there's 2 more retires on the west side of the Cascades that you put onto your map there.
Yep.
And Chad, I see your hand.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, David, very much for coming and presenting to us today. I truly appreciate it. This is a topic that I don't know a lot about, and I think it's a topic of interest that a lot of us have wanted to learn more about. I have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You talked about retention issues around this particular operation, and were there any health and safety concerns associated with the retention issues? Does this type of operation, what type of health and safety impact does it have to the staff? And is that is the operation hard, and does it have any lasting health concerns or things like that? And additionally, you had notated that a lot of times, for example, the Oregon facility will shut down intermittently. Does that same thing happen to you, where it becomes too cost intensive for the operation to run, and then you'll just end up landfilling tons and not running them through the system? So I kind of wanted to know about that. And then lastly, just the toxicity of the ash, and from what we understand, or not from what we understand, but from what I understand or have heard, is that just how environmentally impactful that 10 to 15% is much greater than the landfilling process itself, and not even doing the renewables to begin with. So those were the questions that I had, if you could maybe address.
Sure, no problem. So I'll start with the last one first. So there's 2 components that make up the ash that we ship off to a landfill. There's bottom ash, which is the ash that comes out specifically from the process of burning the municipal solid waste. Then there's fly ash, and the fly ash is the particulates that are created that come up through and go through the flue gas process and are filtered out in what's called a bag house or filter system, fabric filter system. And so we mix lime with the fly ash, and then we mix the two together, and that mix creates a pH neutral product. So Saugus, Mass was built in 1975, and they have their own ash model landfill. And it is, if you look it up, it's built on the bay. Both of them are on the bay there in Massachusetts. And all of these facilities, and I'm just using that one as an example, but all of these facilities that are online and operating go through strict testing. We test our ash monthly, or we test our ash quarterly. But we've got almost 28 years of history here without any type of a negative incident or anything. I mean, obviously things could go dramatically wrong, but because we're monitoring and testing it, if we had something come up as an ash load come up as a bad test, or one of our pieces of equipment failed, then those would have to be treated as hazardous waste. It's never happened in the history of this plant. And I can tell you in the other 3 plants I worked at, it had never happened. Ash model landfills, dedicated ash landfills have a specific design and liner system, just as the way municipal solid waste landfills have. And I think I can safely say this, for probably the last 40 years on the East Coast, ash has been used as cover at landfills, because if you operate a landfill, you know that you're going to take in trash, but then it's difficult for you to drive over it, so you put it in the next layer of trash. So this ash will harden up almost like concrete. And so the tendency to leach disappears once it does that, or it's minimal at best. But there's no incidents that I'm aware of where we've had any environmental impact, negative environmental impact that hasn't been, that has been reported, that wasn't that hasn't been reported, I guess. Just as an FYI, when that facility was built in the 70s back in Massachusetts, the University of Boston, and you can Google this, built what they called the Boathouse Project. So they built a cinder block boathouse out of where the cinder blocks were made of the ash, and that facility still stands. And they've done they did testing. I don't know what the frequencies were, but they've tested those cinder blocks and that facility structure year over year over year with no negative impacts. And I'm also 99% positive they built a reef in the bay out of ash blocks that's been there, and it's continually monitored. These facilities are so regulated, and just an example of how closely they can be monitored at the Baltimore facility. If you've ever seen a picture of that facility, or that location, the EPA has a building that's probably, I don't know, half mile away from that facility, and their offices face the facility. And if they saw what we call opacity, a change in what's coming out of the top of the stack, where it looks like it's glittering, like if you ever got lightheaded, you see like flashes, that's considered opacity or darkness. They would call the plant before we would probably even catch it. So, but Wheelabrator, again, I speak to Wheelabrator because they're actually the pioneers of the United States for these facilities. And, they took it right up front, went to the EPA. They want EPA to know what we're doing. They want the Environmental Protection Agency. We want the Air Agency here in the state of Washington to know what we're doing. So we're in constant contact with them. And that's why we have our own dedicated environmental manager.
Yeah, we just want to know more about it and make sure that we're doing what's right for
Yep.
our community. The population density on the East Coast is dramatically different than our population density.
Yes.
And even with their incinerators in place and everything else, they're still barging municipal solid waste all the way down to the North Carolina city landfill because they just can't manage it. It's so robust with the population density. We don't have those same challenges out here. So we
Right.
want to make sure that what we evaluate and what we suggest and what processes we recommend fit with our profile in this community.
Right. And I guess, and I got to make sure I say this correctly because my environmental manager will shoot me. For every ton of municipal solid waste we process, we eliminate 1 ton of greenhouse gases. So, you know, you're comparing two things. You know, the big focus on the waste energy plant here in the state of Washington is carbon emissions. Landfills emit greenhouse gases. And currently in the state of Washington, if I understand correctly, the state has given the landfills a pass on the greenhouse gas emissions for right now. But they're focused on us. They want us to pay a carbon tax. And we're making the argument that, you know, yes, we emit carbon and we know we emit carbon. We're looking at carbon capture and other things to eliminate that. But, you know, you're wanting to tax us, but you're not wanting to tax landfills. And you're correct about the density and the density in the Northeast or the East Coast and here. And that's why if you look at Europe, you see there's so many waste energy facilities there, but there's not in the United States. There was a 20-year period between the last waste energy facility built in the United States and the one in 2015. And it's because the United States doesn't look at waste energy plants like the Europeans do. There's no land in Europe to put landfills in. Here we have so much land that it just, you know, people say, just stick it in the ground.
Is that new facility in Florida, is that in the West Palm Beach area?
Yes, it is. Palm Beach. It's Palm Beach #2, I think they call it.
Gotcha, okay.
The first question was about staffing, wasn't it? Staffing
Yeah,
retention?
And just understanding the health implications associated with the operation. If there's any, if you've done any studies like, you know, testing employees when they first started after tenure, you know, certain years, things like that, if they've had any negative impacts due to the operation itself, things like that.
So Wheelabrator, I can't speak for Covanta, but I'm 99% positive they take the same approach. So when a person hires on into a waste energy facility, they have to pass a physical. The physical includes, you know, blood testing to establish baselines for your heavy metals, your cadmium, your leads, things like that, your mercuries. Excuse me. But it also tests them for respiratory pulmonary effect. For pulmonary effects, so they can wear a respirator. There are times here in the facility where we required, here at Spokane, we require full face respirators anytime somebody enters the boiler. But they use that initial test, including hearing and blood tests. And then every year the employees are required to take an annual physical at the city of Spokane's cost. And we monitor that. An example of monitoring that's not here, but is part of the Wheelabrator system is that Wheelabrator has a dedicated maintenance crew that goes from plant to plant to plant. And lead is the one thing that they monitor most. And if they exceed a certain number, they're not allowed to go into the boiler till that number comes back down. So they may be out for months. But yes, we monitor employees' health on an annual basis. We keep historical records forever on that stuff. I can tell you that, you know, again, I've been doing this since 1998. I have no health issues related to my work here. I participated in a Title V renewal back in Claremont, New Hampshire, where there were more more organizations that were, you know, working to keep us clean and green. And they actually brought in the wrong gentleman when they came into the hearing, because the gentleman used to be a loader operator at the facility and had been there for 20 years before retiring, and he was 92 years old and he had zero effects. But I have not run across anybody in my career that has had any long-term effects from working with these facilities. We try to protect our people as best we can. We provide all the PPE they need. We evaluate every task that we do, everything from me sitting here at my desk to the ash operator down there cleaning an ash conveyor out. We evaluate all those. We have job safety analysis. We do job hazard analysis. And if we don't have the right PPE, we get it. We're going through right now because L&I has deemed that we cannot use the fire department to support us in confined space rescues. So we're going through right now. We just ordered all the confined space equipment. We're training our people. So we try to stay ahead. We try to always be on top, but stay ahead of what potentially could happen.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
we have,
I'm
oh,
sure Steve
sorry.
has some good questions for you now.
Sorry, that's all right.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chad, didn't mean to talk over the top of you there. We have one more hand, Steve.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a couple of quick comments. The Covanta facility in Oregon, actually the legislature 2 or 3 years ago pulled the clean energy aspect of their energy. Covanta believes that they're likely going to have to shut it down within 2 years. So Covanta likely will probably close their facility in Oregon unless Marion County, Jeff, and you know this probably better than anyone, if Marion County wants to buy it. I'm not sure they have the wherewithal to do that. There is also a facility in Burnaby, British Columbia. As British Columbia viewed their solid waste system, they wanted to actually expand that system by adding 2 more waste energy facilities. The First Nations, as well as the suburbs in Metro Vancouver, opposed that plan dramatically because of concerns about environmental impacts. So basically that's off the table for any future expansion, at least in British Columbia. But hey, great presentation and very informative.
Okay, I appreciate it. Yeah, I know
Yes,
the city.
Commissioner Edwards has, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
No,
David.
I was just going to say the city of Seattle they looked at it a number of years ago, and they again looked at it again about 4 years ago. So it's not completely off the table, I think, for them. You know, the biggest issue right now to me is not opposition, it's cost. You know, that facility in Palm Beach, $650 million to build a 3-boiler facility. That same facility was built back in the 1988s and 1990s for a third of that.
David, are you maxed out at the 800 tons per day that you're processing? And I don't want you to feel too bad because I'm prior Army myself. So.
All right. Nice to have a fellow soldier in the room. Yes, we are maxed out at 800 tons. The boilers are designed at 400 tons apiece. When this facility was built, they built it with the ability to add a 3rd boiler if we so deemed necessary. It's been discussed over the last couple of years since the city took over. Again, it's the cost. The cost of adding that 3rd boiler that I think is keeping us from doing it right now. This facility's been online since '92. It's pretty much paid for itself, and it's self-sufficient. So that's one thing I should point out is that we're an enterprise fund. So we make enough money to support ourselves, and typically we were putting a few $100,000, or a few $1 million a year into our petty cash account.
Thank you. Good presentation.
That was an excellent presentation. Thank you for joining us, David.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to take a quick pulse of the group. We've got about 10 minutes left. Jeff, would you be willing to send us your report, a written report this month?
Oh, absolutely. I only had a couple items anyway, but we had
Okay.
2 other items that were on the agenda.
Right,
I
right.
think with the work planning piece, we kind of talked about that briefly last month, and next month we'll be looking to finalize that. We'll go ahead and send the most current draft out with the minutes
Great.
for looking ahead for the year as far as the work plan. So we can drop that one out.
That'd be great. And then we'll go ahead and hear from Rebecca then.
Rebecca, do you think you can do that in
10
10 minutes? Or we could, she did tell me she is available next month also, but do you think,
Okay,
is that enough
Yeah,
time?
whatever you all prefer, I can hit some of the highlights. We'll actually have more updates probably next month.
next month.
Too. I could come back and give another update or whatever you like.
So here's what I'm thinking. Rebecca, thank you for offering to come back next month when you've got a little bit more information. Why don't we go ahead and walk through our work plan just so people can take a look at that. And then Jeff, we can go ahead and do your report and we'll hear from Rebecca next month. Thank you so much for that, Rebecca. So, Laura, you want to walk us through the plan?
Yeah, so from our last meeting, we added a few things. In February, we're adding the approval of the 2024 work plan that Jeff mentioned. We're also going to have an additional capital facilities project update. In April, we are going to schedule an agricultural slaughter waste presentation that was recommended by Greg, who is our agricultural interests representative. And then in May, we will have a 5 to 10 year climate data and solid waste operations presentation that was recommended by Richard Moon, who is the representative of District Number 2. And we also added to the notes that there will be a hazardous waste management plan and rate studies as they become available to us. And the contact for LeMay has now changed to Aaron Robertson, who is a member of SWAC.
Just a reminder, we will be approving this work plan at our February meeting, at which we will also be electing a new chair and vice chair. Any questions or comments, things people would like to see added to our work plan potentially?
Can we do a reelection?
I think that I have served my time. I think I'm prohibited from serving another term, but thank you for that. Let me just say, it's a pretty easy job if anybody wants it. It's pretty easy and it's fun. You have to go talk to the county commissioners every once in a while, but they're not too hard on you. If there are no further suggestions for our work plan, feel free to come with some thoughts to our February meeting. And Jeff, we have time for your report.
Okay, and just a quick note on that last subject item. Obviously, we would need to show for February that we will have the presentation on the solar installation. So
yes, thank you for that.
Just want to note that particular change. Okay, and I have 6 minutes left. I don't think I'll take that full 6 minutes, so I think we'll be good. My first item I just want to just mention is on December, it has to do with the solid waste budget. On December 15th of 2023, just last month, the Board of County Commissioners approved the Public Works budget as well as other departments as well, which obviously included our solid waste budget for the upcoming biennium. Just want to remind folks, this actually that includes the addition of several new staff that will be dedicated to solid waste related work. Maybe we mentioned that we had a presentation, if you recall, in November. Karen Weiss provided an overview of the budget proposal. The staff that were approved for addition are 2 education and outreach staff, an ENO 2 and an ENO 1, which are going to be primarily focused on the youth education programs. If you recall, we had that conversation at our November meeting. Additionally, there'll be hiring a litter control program labor staff person to join our one other FTE in the litter pickup program. So we currently only had one full-time employee in that program. So this will bring us up to 2. So we'll be recruiting for that here in the upcoming quarter as well. So again, those were approved, and we'll be moving forward with those staff additions here in the next several months. Any questions related to that? Before I move on, I only have 2 other items.
Any questions of Jeff before he moves on? I don't see any hands.
Perfect. The next item I mentioned is the Waste and Recovery Center compactor replacement request for proposals. I believe I mentioned we are going to go out with that at their November meeting. We did release that RFP, and the proposals for replacing our existing compactor at the transfer station here. The proposals are due on January 23rd, so here in about 3 weeks. And so we'll see what kind of proposals we get for that, but probably on a realistic timeline, by the time we get proposals, review them, get a contract put together. Of course, it'll have to go to a public hearing in front of the Board of Commissioners. And from what we understand, there's a build time of 6 to 8 months once we have a contract. So realistically, it would probably be about this time next year. But that would, we hope to have that actually occur. So that replacement happen. And I see Steve Gilmore has his hand up.
Just a quick question, Jeff. Do you anticipate anyone bidding other than SSI?
Probably not. Probably not. The other larger company, there was a mandatory walkthrough back in the first week of December, I believe it was. Well, there was other contractors that were there besides SSI. They were looking more from the subcontract type installation folk. Harris, which is the other company that makes compactors of that size, did not attend. And they actually, we have the conversations that we had with them, had decided not to propose. So
Unfortunate.
that is unfortunate. So we shall see what the proposals that we get. And that, again, that's on the 23rd coming up. And lastly, we had put out, I mentioned previously that we were going out for the request for proposals for vendors to perform oil recycling, as well as recycling of the oil filters and the antifreeze that we collect at Hazel House and some other locations, particularly for the oil. When the proposals were received, we received one. That one proposal was deemed non-responsive, so we are having to go out and put that out, the RFP back out again here shortly. So we did not receive one that was adequate or sufficient. So I'll be going back out with that again. And that is what I have for you today. And unless anybody has any other questions, I think we might finish on time.
Any questions for Jeff? I don't see any hands. I will just point out that Steve put a note in the chat regarding the purchase of ACT Enviro by Republic Services. So they're now handling all of the waste streams currently generated at the wharf. Anything else before we wrap things up? Right on time, maybe a minute early, but that's okay. We started a minute early.
I have something for a 1 minute.
Yes,
thing.
all right.
One thing I'd like to maybe add in somewhere to the work plan is to have a presentation sometime in the year, not necessarily right away. It's about what is our current level of effort and success in reaching out to businesses to use the Hazel House for their hazardous waste. I don't think I've ever seen a presentation on that. You know, it's health and other people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I'd like to, there's some statistics I'd like to get. I know we didn't get a report this month for the last month, but for level of participation at the Hazel House, as well as pounds reused, recycled, energy recovery and disposal, which is, following the hierarchy of ecology. And then one other question, MRW is my thing. And the last thing is to think about maybe how to survey the customers that use the Hazel House with the idea of where are they coming from? Because if we're going to end up, and we're not decided yet, but if we're going to end up having an HHW collection at the South County Transfer Station, we ought to get a sense of what's the level of participation that is coming now versus what population is down there. So if we start surveying even for a month or so of where are the people coming from now to the Hazel House, that'll help us then figure out what the demand is likely to be at the South County Transfer Station if that happens.
All great suggestions. Thank you for those. And I'm wondering, has HDR collected any of that data around?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
Okay,
I was asking Wendy when at the time, and that was not part of what
Okay.
they looked at.
okay.
I got it written out here. a
Oh,
piece of
good.
yellow paper.
I saw Laura feverishly taking notes,
It is
but
my job.
thanks for writing it down.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we let you go on with the rest of your day? Thanks one and all for joining us. Really good meeting, very good presentations today. If David is still here, very informative. Thank you for that. And we will see you in February. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, right on time.
Well,
Thank you.
Hey,
That was the-
David, am I cutting somebody off?